on this grey January day, if you want to inject a bit of a Va Va Voom into your garden, I think there's no better way than topiary. And probably the king of this type of topiary treatment is Tim Bush, otherwise known as Trim Bush, ha ha ha. Now Tim has done such amazing sculptures in gardens, in front gardens in London, that it's even marked some of them as a tourist attraction on Google Maps, rating them 4.8 out of 5. And they are extraordinary. And I also think the story of Tim's work is pretty extraordinary. Tim actually trained as a sculptor first, and then he went on and qualified and worked as an architect. He then started cutting hedges. He was egged on by his then wife Philippa, who sadly now has passed away, and he created some bits for her. And then the neighbours saw them and they wanted something as well. And he's now been doing this for 17 years. And all over London, in front gardens, you will see these iconic bits of topiary popping up everywhere. Elephants, whales, birds in nests, squirrels, cats, anything you can think of. And he was even asked to do a window for Selfridges one year, and that was topiary and amazing. Now, it's interesting talking to Tim about how he actually does his sculpture, because he will look at a bush, he'll draw a sketch, and then he actually just goes in with his 45 centimetre still electric head cutter, and he just goes for it. And he's very, very fast. When he goes to lectures seeing other people demonstrate topiary, and they do the hedge cutters, the shears, the secateurs, he says, wow, I could not take that long. He does it as part-time. It's just a hobby that he fills in, and all the money he makes from it goes to charity. So he does it very well, very efficiently, and as soon as he's taken maybe a big old hedge that's an amorphous shape and he's created an elephant, immediately it looks like an elephant. It will often be brown instead of green because it's cut all the new growth off, but you can see the elephant, and then it quickly grows and fills out and forms an elephant. So I think he's inspirational, and it's not just the fact that you create these wonderful monuments as front gardens that everybody can enjoy and you can be proud of. It's the fact that it sort of brings the community together, and they remark on it and other people do bits to emulate it, or they get Tim to come and do something else as well. And they say, please, can we have a bit of the Tim treatment here? What he doesn't like doing is private jobs in big country house gardens. He likes it to be very much almost like street art, so that it really makes a statement for everyone to enjoy. In my own farmyard here, I've used lots of topiary. I love topiary. My mother had a topiary nursery. And I've used mainly birds because it's a farmyard. I didn't want it to be full of colourful flowers and exotic cultivars and things like that. I wanted to keep it quite structural, quite simple. And so we made all these birds. Now, some of them were a present from my mother's nursery. Some we formed ourselves. And they are nearly all box. Now, with box flight coming up and hitting us, I'll obviously keep these and I'll just watch them. I'll use lots of pheromone traps, and I'll also use dipel if necessary to back it up. It is a lovely medium for topiary, but it's just such a problem keeping on top of the box moth and the box blight. So I've really moved on to yew now. And on my mother's nursery, when she sadly passed away, it was interesting how we actually lifted the yew. She had grown the yew in situ for 10 plus years and been shaping it over the years, and she hadn't actually got a machine to undercut it. Often when you're selling topiary commercially, you get a knife and you undercut the roots so you don't get these massive tap roots going down, and you get nice bushy roots so they're easier to lift. Otherwise you move them every so often, every few years to do that. But she hadn't done this, and we were quite apprehensive about getting these machines in and lifting the topiary, the yew topiary, without it being undercut, but we did it. And I was amazed to say that it all survived. And that was moving it in, we moved it in sort of April, late April, which seemed to be, having talked to everyone who knew about this, a good time to do it. And other times when we've used topiary for clients, we've gone to big nurseries like Solitaire in Belgium and picked out amazing specimens and transplanted them. But you can obviously just grow them from scratch, and even quite small plants, you can, you know, if I'm making box beech balls out there, I'll put 3 beech plants together, and in 2 or 3 years you can shape them into a really nice ball. And I've got little balls there of yew that I'm making, and I just put in a yew plant and shape them up. So you can just form your own from a cutting, from a young plant you've brought in. What is exciting about topiary is you can just do anything with it, and it's always so individual. And that's what I think makes it so iconic, because it's very different from many other things you'll see. I like this bird, the centre point in this area, very much. What is interesting about this bird is I obviously wanted to raise it up to be on top of the tree seat, as it were. So I put a round metal bit of ply, or a round bit of metal or ply or something on the bottom, and then I put the baseless pot on top of that, having obviously filled the base with soil. And so that way I jacked her up by a good 1.3 metres. And she's fine. I reckon her roots are probably right down in the ground now. And if you want to elevate topiary, and I always think topiary does look really good elevated, then it's good to put it in a baseless pot. And that makes it so you can really see it and enjoy it. Now, the problem with yew, Taxus baccata, is it really does not grow well in a container for a long period. It just does not like it. So with my yew topiary in the wall garden, all my terracotta pots have the bases taken out and the soil underneath. And they've been like that with no maintenance for maybe 5-10 years now. And they were grown from just tiny little bushes, nothing special. It really doesn't take long to shape them up. Many gardeners realise that when you prune, growth follows the knife. So therefore, if this wing here was much thinner than that wing, it's not, but if it were, then you would cut this thin one much harder than you would cut that one. And that would have the effect of making this really trigger out. So it's counterintuitive. And often gardeners think that if you've got a very thin side of a shrub that's really not balanced, they will just leave it so it will grow to catch up with the other side. But it doesn't work like that. You've got to be cruel to be kind, cut it quite hard back and make it trigger and spring into growth. So if you want to add a bit of that certain something to your garden, I think topiary is a fabulous way. Whether you want to be very modern and use quite strong classical shapes like balls and cones and things like that, or very traditional in sort of Versailles style, or whether you want to be figurative and do a Tim Bush and have hippos, rhinoceroses, sharks, baby birds, whatever, the world's your oyster. And what is lovely about doing it is you do it slowly over the years and it gets better and better. But even that first initial cut, as Tim says, will give you something straight away if you've got a lovely big hedge.